Okay, so we saw the same thing. We added the two equations. We got 0 equals 30, and we can see that both of the variables were eliminated. So we have a contradiction. 0 does not equal 30. This means there's no solution, and this is an example of an inconsistent system. So notice if we graph these, there are two lines. They have the same slope, but they never intersect because they're parallel to each other. So let's do another system and see what happens. So I have, again, I have negative 3x plus 6y equals 9, and I have x minus 2y equals minus 3. Now, there's actually two things I could do here, okay? So first, I'm going to do it using elimination the way I already showed you. And I would say here that the best thing for me to do probably is multiply this by 3. Then if I add them together, well, let's actually rewrite this over here. Now notice this cancels. This is 0, this is 0, and this is 0. So what I get is 0 equals 0. So what does that mean? It means it's always true. This has infinitely many solutions. Infinitely many solutions. Oh, actually, you know what? To the last problem, there's no solution, so I can't write a solution. So my bad about that. There's no solution. We can't write a solution. This one has infinitely many solutions. So we really can write the solution, and I'm going to write it the way I showed you before. Well, first let's write the solution. So our solution is, and I'm going to again use this, and I'm just going to say x, okay? So my solution is I have some value of x, and once I know what x is, then I can solve for y, right? So I would, first thing I would do here is I would actually solve this for y. So I'm going to subtract, here, let's do it up here. X minus 2y equals negative 3. And I'm going to solve this for y in terms of x. So I'm going to subtract x from both sides. I'll make it easier for you guys. I will add y to both sides. So I get x equals 2y minus 3. Now I'm going to add 3 to both sides. And I get x plus 3 equals 2y. These cancel. And now I'm going to divide everything by 2. So I'll divide this by 2, this by 2, this by 2. And we get x over 2. Here, we get x over 2 equals, plus 3 over 2 is equal to y. So now I can literally put that here. I have x over 2 plus 3 halves is my solution for y. Another way I can write this is x comma 1/2 x plus 3 halves. Whichever way you want. I don't think it makes a difference. So I wanted to show you how to do this, but then as one more thing I wanted to show you. Here, I can look at this. I wanted to show you that sometimes the easiest thing to do before you start is to see if there's anything that I can factor out of every single term. And I noticed that if I have negative 3x plus 6y equals 9, I can factor a 3, right? If I factor a 3 out of the first term, I get negative x. If I factor a 3 out of the second term, I get plus 2y equals, if I factor a 3, I get 3. Notice that's almost exactly the same as that, except it's negative. If I were to factor out a -3, I would get x minus 2y equals -3, where this inside here is exactly the same as this. So we started with the top and we ended with everything being divisible by 3. I can say here x minus 2y equals -3, which is exactly the same as where I started. So we just showed that they're exactly the same line, and how it would be graphed is like this. They're both the same line. So I only have one line, and that's why there's infinitely many solutions, because every point on the line is an ordered pair, because both of them are the same and they intersect at every point. Okay. So now what we want to do is we want to start doing some examples. So Billy has $16.50 in his piggy bank. And in his piggy bank, he has nickels, dimes, and quarters. Okay. We know that if we multiply nickels, if we add the nickels, dimes, and quarters together, we get $16.50. Billy notices that he has 20 fewer quarters than dimes. So he has more dimes than quarters, right? So let's use this. Let's use this sentence, 20 fewer quarters than dimes, to say that dimes is equal to, so I have 20 fewer quarters than dimes, so I have more dimes, right? So I can say Q, quarters, minus 20. Okay, right? So if I have 22 quarters, I have 2 dimes. Is that right? Let's see, 20 fewer quarters than dimes. I have this backwards. So this is a really good example of when you get things, when you plug in numbers and you get things backwards, check things. So really what I have is that quarters equals dimes minus 20, right? So I have 20 fewer quarters than dimes. So let's see, if I have 22 dimes, I have 2 quarters. Now that makes sense because I have less quarters than dimes. First time I had them backwards. So you should always just plug in a number and make sure that it's right. Okay, so we got that one. If the number of nickels is equal to the number of quarters plus dimes combined, so that means that nickels is equal to dimes plus quarters, right? So let's read it again. If the number of nickels is equal to the number of quarters and the number of dimes combined, so that makes sense. How many of each coin does Billy have? So we have these 2 equations that I don't believe were that difficult to get to. But now our last equation is going to be a little bit more difficult. So let me see if I can explain this so you understand. If you have a nickel and 2 dimes, you have 5 cents plus 2 times 10 cents, right? Or 25 cents. So when I want to know how much money I have, I multiply the number of that item, like nickels, times 5 cents, right? And that tells me how much money I have. If I have 5 nickels, I have 5 cents times 5, or 25 cents, right? So that's how we're going to figure out, using this amount here, we're going to figure out how many of each coin do we have. So first we have to write that equation. So I know that 5 cents is written like this, right? So the number of nickels times 5 cents plus the number of dimes times 10 cents plus the number of quarters times 25 cents has got to be equal to $16.50. Now, I believe on the first video, I think this is the easiest way to go, so you don't have to work with decimals, is multiply everything by 100. If you multiply everything here by 100, then what happens is you get rid of the decimals because there's two decimal places. So 0.05 times 100 is 5n, plus 10 cents times 100 is 10d, plus 0.25 times 100 is 25q, is equal to 1,650. Now, at least now I don't have any decimals, okay? So let's see what I can do here. I need to eliminate something. So I know that Q, the quarters, is equal dimes minus 20. So let's start there. So I have plus 10 dimes plus, now for the quarters, I'm going to say 25 times, and I'm using Q equals D minus 20. And I say that's equal to 1,650. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. Now, if we can somehow get nickels into just dimes, then we're in pretty good shape, right? So I know nickels equals dimes plus quarters, so let's start with that. I have 5 times D plus Q plus 10D plus, and I'm just gonna multiply this out or distribute, 25D minus 500 equals 1,650. Okay, so now I have 5D plus 5Q plus 10D plus 25D minus 500 is equal to 1,650. Okay, hold on. Let me put in another slide here. And what I'm going to do is copy, let's see, what do I want to copy? Let me do something here. So I want to, hold on. There we go, send it back. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to copy this right here. I want this last line here, or I'll take the last two. So we're going to copy and paste. And I also want this. So I want to copy this and paste this here. Okay, so now I have really what I need. Okay, so let's see first if we can, I think let's just simplify this a little because we have things we can combine. We might as well combine them to begin with. For example, I have 5D plus 10D, which is 15D, plus 25D, which gives me 40D. Well, that simplified things quite a bit, right? Plus 5Q minus 500 is equal to 1,650. And then let's add 500 to both sides. We're going to make things look even better. So I have 40D plus 5Q is equal to 2,150. We're getting close. But again, I need Q in terms of D. But don't forget, I have this equation. So I can now say, here, I'll change back to red. I can now say 40D plus 5 times Q, well, Q equals D minus 20 is equal to 2150. So let's continue. 40D plus 5D minus 100 is equal to 2150. 45D minus 100 is equal to 2150. 45D, and I'm going to add 100 to both sides. So I add 100 to both sides. These cancel, I get 45D is equal to 2250. So now I divide both sides by 45, and I get D is equal to 2250 divided by 45. Just give me 1 second. Let me actually get my calculator out for this, so I don't make any mistakes. So 2250 divided by 45 equals 50. So that means I know now I have 50 dimes. Once I know how many dimes I have, so here, I'll write it out here. I have 50 dimes. Now I can go to my first equation because I know I have 20 less quarters than dimes. So the number of quarters I have is 30, right? And then I just have to know how many nickels I have. Well, nickels I have is 50 Q plus D, which is 50 plus 30, or 80. So I've now found out how many of each thing I have, right? I have 50 dimes, 30 quarters, and 80 nickels. And then what you could do is you can actually calculate this. Should we do it? Yeah, let's do it. Just to make sure that it's correct. So we said we have 50 dimes, 30 quarters, and 80 nickels. D equals 50, Q equals 30, and N equals 80. So let's do it. So we know we have 80 nickels. So we're going to multiply that by 0.05, because 5 cents. So 80 times 0.05 is going to be, again, I need my calculator. I think I know, but I don't want to get it wrong. So 80 times 0.05 equals 4. So 80 times 0.05, which is the number, which is the amount of the dollar amount of nickels I have, is $4. Okay. Then I have, this is in nickels. Let's do dimes. So I have 50 dimes. They're each worth 10 cents. So that means I have $5 in dimes, right? And quarters, I have 30 quarters times 0.25, which is equal to $7.50. So let's add all that up. $7.50 plus $5 plus $4 is equal to $16.50, which is exactly what they said it would be equal to. So I know that's a little more complicated, but that is how you solve that kind of a problem. And if you're confused, don't forget, you can always come to see me in office hours, or you can rewatch the video and see if it makes sense a second time through, but that's how you do that. So again, I know we've gone over this a few times. I'm going to go over it again. 5-step strategy for problem solving using system of equations, which is really the same as what we saw before. Before it was 4 steps. So we want to read the problem until we understand. And if possible, create diagrams, charts, or tables. So I would say basically that, or make sure you can draw, if you can draw a picture, okay? And then choose the variables that describe each unknown quantity. So I did D, N, and Q because that way it was easy for me to keep track of dimes, nickels, and quarters. If you use X, Y, and Z, you're going to have to write somewhere what each of those things stands for, because in the end, you won't know. Okay. And then write a system of equation using the given information, which we did. This is our systems of equations. Actually, we have 3 of them. This is also included in the system of equations. Okay. So there's 3 systems because we have 3 unknowns. Remember I said, if you, as many unknowns as you have to have that many equations. Okay. And then solve the systems of equations using methods of elimination or substitution, whichever seems to work best. And then make sure you answered you've answered the questions and check all answers to ensure they make sense. Well, we did check our answers, and question says, how many of each coin does Billy have? We answered that question. Billy had 50 dimes, 30 quarters, and 80 nickels. And we checked our answer to make sure that it made sense, and it does. So that's basically how you do these systems of equations. Again, if you have any problems or any questions, please feel free to reach out. I'm happy to help.